The recycling compactor hummed its usual midnight melody as Harry Chen pushed his maintenance cart down corridor 7 Beta of the Kepler station. 23 years he'd been mopping these floors, watching humanity's best and brightest conduct their experiments while he emptied their trash bins. The irony wasn't lost on him. A single father working the graveyard shift on a research station orbiting Europa, raising his daughter via video calls transmitted across 628 million kilometers of space. He pulled out his protein synth pizza from the cart's thermal compartment. The thing barely resembled Earth pizza anymore, just nutrients pressed into a familiar shape, but it was his ritual. Midnight, corridor 7 Beta, cold pizza, and the gentle cryo-hum of the xenobiology labs. That's when he heard it. A sound like wind chimes made of glass, delicate and utterly wrong for this sterile environment. Harry froze, his hand hovering over the pizza. The sound came again, more insistent now, followed by a wet, desperate scraping. Regulation 447C explicitly forbade custodial staff from entering active research labs. But that sound, that keening, musical whimper, bypassed every company policy Harry had ever memorized and went straight to the part of his brain that woke up when his daughter had nightmares. He keyed his maintenance override into Lab 7 Beta 3's door panel. The lab was in chaos. Equipment overturned, containment fields flickering red, and in the corner, pressed against the transparent aluminum wall of a shattered habitat module, was something that shouldn't exist. Elsa, though Harry wouldn't learn her name until later, was roughly the size of a terrier, with scales that shifted through the visible spectrum like oil on water. 4 legs, membranous wings folded against a serpentine body, and eyes that held far too much intelligence for something that had allegedly been in a developmental stasis pod until 3 hours ago. The Elsa's respiratory spiracles were flaring arrhythmically. Harry had seen enough distress in living things to recognize it instantly. "Sir, I can't eat," the translator collar around her neck crackled, the words emerging in a child's soprano that made Harry's chest tighten. The vocal patterns were wrong, probably calibrated for the research team's later experiments, but the meaning was devastatingly clear. Harry approached slowly, hands visible, pizza forgotten on a nearby counter. "Easy there, little one. What happened here?" Elsa's scales rippled through ultraviolet fear, Harry's instincts told him, though he had no scientific basis for the assumption. The scientists, they ran when the containment failed. The atmospheric composition shifted. "I cannot metabolize anything in this environment. My biology requires," the collar sparked, and she whimpered again. Harry's mind raced through 18 months of overhearing xenobiology briefings while emptying trash cans. The Kepler station had made first contact with Elsa's species. The scientific designation was unpronounceable, something with too many clicks and harmonics. 6 months ago, a probe had discovered their civilization in the subsurface oceans of Enceladus. The dragon morphology was an adaptation to their world's unique chemistry. Liquid methane sees beneath kilometers of ice, with energy derived from hydrothermal vents and complex sulfur-based nutrients. His pizza, his stupid protein-synthesized pizza. "The substrate composition," Harry muttered, pulling up the lab's public-facing research documentation on his wrist terminal. His clearance was laughable, but the station's AI had flagged certain files as educational outreach material. He scrolled frantically through chemical compositions, biological requirements, metabolic pathways that looked like abstract art. Elsa was dying. The atmospheric shift, probably caused when whatever containment failure had scattered the research team, had altered the lab's carefully calibrated environment. She needed sulfur compounds, specific amino acid chains that existed in her native ecosystem but nowhere in human nutrition. Except, Harry grabbed the pizza, his heart pounding. The protein synthesis process used bacterial cultures optimized for deep space efficiency. The bacterial strains were engineered from thermophiles originally discovered near hydrothermal vents on Earth. The chemical signatures wouldn't be identical, but the base compounds. "This is insane," he whispered, but he was already kneeling beside Elsa, breaking off a piece of the pizza. "Your translator working well enough to understand me?" Yes, her eyes, three of them, he realized, one hidden beneath a translucent scale on her forehead, focused on him with desperate hope. "I'm going to give you something. It's probably going to make you sick. It might do nothing, but it's got compounds that are at least in the same chemical family as what you need. Your biology might be able to extract something useful. Understand?" Elsa's scales shifted to a pale gold. Agreement, Harry guessed. He offered the pizza piece. Elsa's eating mechanism was nightmarish and fascinating, a proboscis that emerged from what Harry had thought was a decorative scale pattern, secreting enzymes that broke down the food externally before absorption. The process took 3 minutes. Harry counted every second. Her scales brightened, shifting from the desperate ultraviolet to something in the blue-green spectrum. The spiracles steadied their rhythm. "It's working," Harry breathed. "The sulfur amino acid analogs are sufficient for temporary metabolic stabilization," Elsa said, her translator collar losing some of its static. "You have saved my life, Harry Chen, custodial engineer, personnel ID KC7742. Harry blinked. "You can read my name tag in this light. I can perceive in spectrums you cannot imagine. I know you are afraid. I know you have a daughter named Sophie who attends the Armstrong Colony School. I know you send 73% of your salary to her educational fund. I know you are lonely." The accuracy was startling. "How?" "Your biometric readings, pheromones, micro-expressions. Your species broadcasts so much without knowing. My kind evolved in absolute darkness beneath ice. We learned to read every signal." Elsa's wings rustled softly. "You are kind, Harry Chen. The researchers who created my containment environment saw me as a specimen. You saw me as a child." Harry sat back on his heels. "You're sapient, fully sapient. Does the research team know?" "They suspect. They do not want to know. Confirmation would complicate their funding." Elsa's voice carried a weight beyond her apparent age. "I'm the first of my kind to leave our world. I volunteered, believing contact with your species would benefit both our civilizations. Instead, I am studied like a bacterial culture." The ethical implications crashed over Harry like a wave. First contact protocol, sapience rights, the whole framework of interspecies interaction. All of it was being violated in this sterile lab, while bureaucrats back on Earth argued about jurisdiction. "What do you need?" Harry asked simply. "To go home, to tell my people that humanity is not ready for equals, only for subjects to study." The bitterness in her translated voice was sharp enough to cut. Harry looked at his pizza, at this impossible creature, at the life he'd built on careful compliance with regulations that suddenly seemed monstrous. "Or," he said slowly, "we could tell them that humanity is better than its institutions, that some of us still know how to see people instead of specimens." Elsa's 3 eyes studied him. "You would risk your employment, your daughter's education fund. Sophie's learning that doing the right thing matters more than doing the safe thing. Might as well practice what I preach." Harry stood, his decision crystallizing. "I'm calling this in, but not to the research division. There's a protocol officer on station, Commander Yuki Tanaka. She's got a reputation for actually caring about the rules that matter, not just the ones that protect budgets. They will say, 'You contaminated the experiment by feeding me.'" "Yeah, well," Harry grinned despite everything, "they can file a complaint with custodial services." Elsa's scales rippled through a color Harry had never seen, something warm and shimmering like sunlight through amber. "This is laughter," she said. "Among my people, we show joy through chromatic expression. You have given me 2 gifts tonight, Harry Chen. Life, and a reason to believe your species might be worth knowing after all. Harry pulled out his communicator, already composing the message that would probably end his career. But as he looked at Elsa, this child from an alien ocean, scared and far from home, he thought of Sophie, and every night he'd promised her that the universe was full of wonders worth protecting. Some things, he decided, were more important than job security. "Let's get you home, kid," he said. "But first you're finishing this pizza, doctor's orders." Elsa's laughter, translated through technology but unmistakable in its joy, filled the sterile lab with something that sounded remarkably like hope. The end.